It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I am so glad to be with you this evening. We have a special pre-election segment tonight, and I have two guests, one on the phone and one in the studio with me. Mr. Patrick Brutus is going to hold on with me because we're going to talk about a whole lot of things. But first, my on the phone guest is Dr. Danita Hughes, who is the president and CEO of Edgewater Systems in Gary, Indiana, and the author of The Unapologetic Woman. Dr. Hughes, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Thank you so much for being willing to be a part of the Straight No Chaser show this evening.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, we wanted to discuss before we get into the rest of the elections how this battle between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, specifically for the office of President of the United States, has been tainted to some degree by misogynistic behavior and sexism. What is your opinion on that, and how would you handle things from the Hillary perspective if you were in her shoes right now?
Well, I think that the best thing that Hillary could do is just stay true to her core values. You know, she's a woman who is known for putting into place programs, policies, strategies to help the underprivileged, you know, children of color, people of color, and someone who's not afraid to roll up her sleeves to get the job done. And so she needs to really stay true to that. And then the other thing that she can do is just simply surround herself with positive, supportive people. You know, those are the people who can tell you what you need to know without being afraid that they're going to hurt your feelings. They can be honest without being mean-spirited. They can debate without being debilitating. They can also be right without being righteous. So these are people who she needs to surround herself with, people who are going to tell her the truth, tell her what she needs to know in order to better position herself to withstand the challenges that she's confronted with today, and undoubtedly that she's going to be president.
So you are pretty convinced that she is going to win the popular vote tomorrow? Dr. Hughes? We're having a little connection problem. Can you hear us?
Hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Are you convinced that she will win the popular vote tomorrow?
I just feel strongly in my heart that she's going to cannot for the life of me imagine who are going to vote for the hatred and divisiveness that everybody. I just really do.
Okay, we are having a little problem with the connection, Dr. Hughes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang up and I'm going to talk with Mr. Brutus a little bit, and I'm going to call you a little bit later in the hour if that's okay. Great. Okay, I'll give you a call back in a little bit. Now, Mr. Brutus.
It's a very good question, Rhea. In terms of, are we confident that Hillary, will surpass Donald Trump in the popular vote, right? Because that essentially will determine the will of the nation. And I will just say that strategically and politically, what she, as well as, Donald Trump, both need to focus on is the electoral college vote. I think that much has been discussed about how either one of the candidates, if they win, how do they move forward, in terms of resetting the nation and trying to move forward together and having a nice, peaceful transition of power. And that is usually based on the popular vote. But, in order to win, you have to have 270. And so I think that's the more important equation that both camps are trying to figure out today.
Let me give people what I want to call a brief lesson, because what I've been shocked about in my conversations with various populations and demographics is a lot of people really don't understand what this really is about. So yes, everyone is going out to vote, hopefully, or already has in the early voting process. But the popular vote does not elect the president of the United States.
That's correct.
It is elected by the Electoral College members, which is a part of the United States Constitution. So even if we wanted to change this, it would have to be a constitutional amendment that is passed so that this system no longer exists. The people that are in the Electoral College are selected by the political parties, and the process varies from state to state. But what people also don't understand is that I've seen is that there's, for example, a gentleman that is of Native American descent out of the state of Washington who has stated up front he does not care what happens when the vote goes down. He's not voting for Hillary Clinton. And because there is no national way to handle that, the state of Washington only has a $1,000 fine if you vote contrary to your party's intention. So he said he's going renegade.
Right, he's going rogue.
So
as most states, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Rhea.
No, go on.
Yeah, most states. So first of all, the Electoral College, as you said, is basically a group of electors. There's 1-to-1 ratio for each member of Congress in terms of the number of electors. And so, most states, state election commissions have this policy or this practice where if you win the state's popular vote, all the electoral college votes will then go to that candidate who won the popular vote. So it's basically you can say all or nothing. And so, like, you're right, this person in Washington state is going to go rogue. He's already declared he's not going to vote for Hillary. So in the state of Washington, if Hillary does win the popular vote, they will be however many electoral votes they have minus the one. And I think presumably will go to somebody else.
Right. I think we have Dr. Hughes back on the line. Dr. Hughes?
Yes, I am here.
And I can hear you clearly. So we were discussing the Electoral College and letting people know basically that even with the popular vote, they still have to get the Electoral College vote total of 270 to actually be declared president of the United States. But in your writing, The Unapologetic Woman, what is the basis of that? Because that's a powerful title. And how does it, for us, tie into Hillary Clinton?
Okay. The core message in the book is that we need to stop apologizing and start owning our power. So stop apologizing and start owning your power. That is the philosophy of the book. Women are, like we're seeing right now in this election, women are not given credit for their contributions, they're not valued for, the things that they're able to do, that they're not valued for their successes and just really being able to make a difference in the world. And so we have to stand up and say, hey, I do have value. I do have something to offer. Let our voices be heard and just stand in our power. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And I'm hoping that if Hillary Clinton does win, that she's able to do that, because as Barack Obama said, I want to say it was last week, the attributes that she displays when it's a man is considered a positive, but as a woman it's considered, as they say in the hood, that's just too much, you're doing too much. And so as a woman looking at that, it makes you question, how can you operate on that tightrope? How can you be effective without being what is considered combative by perhaps a good significant portion of the male population?
I think that what she needs to do, as I had mentioned before, she needs to get herself a cadre of supportive people who are going to tell her, what she needs to know in order to be able to do an effective job, and who are going to be honest with her. The communication needs to be clear, and she needs to just be assured that the people that she's working with have her best interest in mind. And then, she doesn't seem to be a woman that lacks confidence. So I think that basically what she needs to do is just really stay true to her core values, go in with the attitude that I am going to create a united group of people to work with me, and that I'm going to unite the country and just work towards that goal. I think that she has the opportunity to make a real difference. And if she puts into practice a lot of the things that, recognizing that there are a lot of barriers that women confront. Some of them are self-created, but some of them are real. But all of them can be eradicated if she just uses the strategies and the advice that's been given, by people, and that I talk about in my book, that have been given to her by people that she's worked with. Many of the things I talk about in my book, but she needs to just really she shouldn't go in with blinders on or with rose-colored glasses, because it's not going to be easy. She just needs to surround herself with competent, loyal people, and I think she'll be able to do what she needs to do. She has to watch out for the saboteurs, because they're going to be there and they're going to be rampant, and they're going to be after her. People aren't used to a woman in power. A lot of folk aren't used to that, and for this position, it's the most powerful position in the free world. And a lot of people really still think, why should a woman have that? Can she handle that? Without even giving her the opportunity or the chance to try to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Hughes, for your input. Where can people purchase your book, The Unapologetic Woman?
It can be purchased on Amazon.com.
Thank you again, and I look forward to one day having you in the studio, because we want to talk a little bit more about the Edgewater Systems that you are the president and CEO of in Gary, Indiana.
Absolutely, and I do so much appreciate your having me on this evening.
Great. I will talk with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Now, that's clear, but I want to remind people that there are also two other candidates.
There are, yep.
Gary Johnson, who's running on the Libertarian ticket, and Jill Stein, who's running on the Green ticket. And for those of you who don't know, the reason that they were not included in the debates, from what I understand, is you have to have at least 15%
polling average, right?
Polling average before they even consider you, which I think that's kind of, I don't want anybody down there with 1% necessarily. That could be me and Mickey Mouse, but
right.
I think that there should be a little more flexibility with that.
I completely agree. I think that the nation suffers when all voices aren't being heard in the debate of how to move America forward and, propose the right kinds of policies, the best kinds of policies, that will impact the many different demographics that make up this country. And so, these requirements that are established by, the Presidential Commission that host the debates, for years, it's been unfair. I think the last third-party candidate that we had in a presidential debate might have been Ross Perot, if my memory serves me correct, and that was in '92. Right. And so, it's been a long time since a third party has been able to galvanize enough Americans and their interest to get this polling average up to where it needs to be for them to be included. But for those folks who are out there and are not inspired by either of the two main candidates, many have said that this is a race to the bottom, and don't look forward to closing your eyes and holding your nose and voting the lesser of two evils, as we've often heard. You're absolutely right, Rhea. There's the Green Party candidate, the Libertarian candidate. In fact, Jill Stein was in Chicago, I believe, last month, campaigning here. She has a black vice presidential candidate running with her.
Brother Baraka,
absolutely. And so, there's plenty of options on the menu for those folks who are looking at, who to select.
In 11 states, also, there's a fifth party where there's a fifth candidate.
Right. There's another guy running, and I think he's on in 43 states, absolutely.
Is it 43?
Yeah,
okay.
The guy from Utah.
Yes.
I forget his name, but he's, I think, a state employee from the government, Secret Service, I believe. He's an analyst or NSA or something. He's a guy from Utah, and They're, you know,
they're actually a lot of them are going to vote for him in Utah that they interviewed because they feel like he's Trump light.
Right. That's the one state that folks think that he could actually, you know, really compete in. We'll see what happens. I don't think so.
We'll see what the numbers are.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on in Utah for him to really, you know, pitch a tent down there. But we'll see. You know, this is the Super Bowl. We'll find out who wins the game tomorrow.
Well, maybe, because that's what they thought in 2000 with Mr. Gore and Mr. Bush, and they took what, a month or two.
Well, you know, there are some analytical scenarios where the candidates Trump and Hillary both come out tied, 269, which would throw this into the House of Representatives, which is another caveat to the Electoral College rule. As you know, there's 538, you know, votes total. You got to get 270, which is a majority to win. We were getting back to that, but you know, these kinds of other candidates can kind of shift, you know, how things happen in terms of the popular vote. And so that's why you run and you play the game, and we find out who wins later. So we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
And for those people, because again, I found with Barack Obama, people thought he was Superman, deflecting bullets and saving babies and all this.
He was the savior. He was Jesus.
As well, please, no, he was not Jesus. But you know,
I say that figuratively.
Right. People thought he was almost walking on water.
Absolutely.
Let me say what the basics are for the job. The president leads the executive branch of the federal government and is the commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Forces. He signs or vetoes all bills passed by Congress. Operative phrase, bills passed by Congress. He's not out here creating laws his own.
That's right.
And he nominates federal judges and the Supreme Court justices, which is another issue that's been on the table with Barack's nominee being held up by the Republicans. But just so people have a little better understanding, because I didn't know, again, that people did not understand what he could and could not do until I heard what they thought he should be doing.
Right. A lot of black voters, especially now, you know, we're in Chicagoland area. And so a lot of, you know, the population that represents me, represents you, felt emphatically that over the 8 years of the Obama administration, there was not enough done for the African American, you know, population, not only in Chicago but nationwide. And so when people look at the real legislation that was signed into law that really gave a leg up and you know, a hand up to the Latino and immigrant population with the DREAM Act, and you know, you look at the Marriage Equality Act. And then you look at, you know, the Affordable Care Act, which helped industry, right? And, you know, also created 20 million folks who are insured. So you look at certain demographics of people targeted specifically, their agenda, checkbox was filled, completed, they're happy. And then you look at other groups of folks who are still left waiting for something you know, dramatic for them to happen. And one of those demographics are, you know, African Americans. And so you're right, but it's good for you to point out exactly what the president's role is in government, what his obligations are to the Constitution, and what the requirements are for the job in and of itself. And so Barack Obama cannot create law. But what he can do as president, and what we've seen in the last 3 administrations, you know, in my lifetime with the Clinton administration, certainly with the Bush administration, and to a large degree, the Obama administration as well, have, you know, created meaningful things to happen via executive order. So there are, you know, a number of different things that the president can do by his, you know, executive order that can create meaningful things to happen. And so we've seen that, I think, more and more, which has caused consternation from members of Congress, because they say their job is to create law, not the executive branch's job. So,
but there is an option.
There are options. There's always more than one food item on the menu.
The old food, more than one way to skin a cat.
That's right.
But one of the uglier battles in Illinois is for the United States Senator Junior's position, which we actually have 4 candidates. We only hear about 2. So the Green Party is represented by Scott Summers. The Libertarian Party is represented by Kenton McMillan. But we are basically watching the battle between Tammy Duckworth and Mark Kirk. So for you to know, there are only 2 United States senators per state. They actually approve or reject presidential nominations. They propose and consider new laws, provide advice and consent on international treaties, and serve on the High Court for impeachment trials.
Mm-hmm.
That is their general job description, and they sit for a 6-year term.
Mm-hmm.
The Kirk Duckworth battle is similar
Slugfest.
to a lot of people to the Trump Clinton battle.
Yes.
You have men versus women in theory, and which are following on the same party lines, and it's gotten personal and it's gotten ugly, and you know very little about what both of them would like to do strategically,
right?
But you know about how they feel about somebody's mama. And I'm being facetious with that, but it's
but you're right, because Kirk
level.
made a comment that he had to apologize for at the second debate, that he apologized for in the third debate. He referenced something about his heritage and his parent and her parentage, and you know, that was very below.
That was dirt level.
Yeah, it was lowbrow, very lowbrow. And you know, the U.S. Senate is a very prestigious position. That's the senior chamber of Congress. They're, you know, there for 6 years for a reason. They do have, you know, dramatic responsibilities. They confirm appointments. They confirm, you know, all the judicial appointments, you know, from the district level to the Supreme Court level. It's a very serious job, and we need serious people because we have serious problems. And so we do need a good senator in that position. You know, as a Democrat, you know, I would love to see a Democrat hold that so that we can, one, regain, you know, another, you know, advantage in the Senate. You know, right now,
because we already have the senior U.S. Senator is Mr. Durbin.
Right. Dick Durbin is like the number 2 guy in the Democratic caucus. I think he's the whip. There was a big, you know, battle for, you know, between him and the senator from New York to be the new minority leader. Harry Reid is stepping down out of Nevada. So, you know, it's a very important thing. And, you know, this is also referred to as the Obama seat, right? And so, you know, we like to see it come back to Democratic control. Is Tammy Duckworth the right candidate? Is Mark Kirk going to beat her? A lot of questions, a lot of money being spent in this race.
And speaking for the other side, the reason it's been such an issue is because when the primaries were happening and Andrea Zopp and Napoleon Harris were running for the seat against Tammy Duckworth, it was alleged that she basically dodged the African American community and dodged debating with them because she just didn't have to and still could carry that primary. And she did. And she carried the primary. I'm not going to say if she dodged or not, because I'm not going to get all off into that type of, you know, information.
You don't think it's important?
Well, what I can say is
it's important for our vote not to be taken for granted.
Sure, a lot of Black people still feel that Tammy Duckworth, who has worked for veterans, from what I've seen on her website, and she does some work for the elderly, but she really has not had to, up until now, deal with a Black-based constituency, and really has kind of skirted it. I think she had a photo out with John Lewis out of Georgia this past weekend, but they were like, where you been for months?
Yeah. This is one of those examples, Rhea, that where the perception actually does match the reality. You know, her outreach and her campaigning and her effort to talk to Black voters where they live has been minuscule. I cannot say for a fact that she has been out. You know, I went to a community meeting not too long ago. I think it might have been last month, where they had a surrogate come in to speak on her behalf. And the folks there were saying, hey, the guy that came here the month before to talk to us didn't have enough information, which is why this new person was out to provide a better, clearer picture of her platform. And her platform was unimaginative, uninnovative, you know, it was uninspired. And so, but then I saw a commercial where she is talking about, you know, trying to create new jobs in certain industries for our state. And so we have to always remember that U.S. senators represent the entire population of the state, as opposed to a congressman who, you know, represents a district more, can be more in touch with their constituents. So the commercial spoke to the complete opposite of what I heard from her surrogate in person when I attended a community meeting. Now, we can only hope, Rhea, that she is going to, if she wins, live up to the commercial. And that sounds like, you know, seeing a Big Mac on TV, perfectly, positioned in the box with a great, piece of meat, and the lettuce is not out of place. Two all beef, special sauce, lettuce and cheese.
Sugar, onions on a sesame seed bun.
And then when you go to Mickey D's, it's flat. The bread is not, nice. Yes. And so we want the Big Mac to be a real Big Mac. And so I'm hoping that Tammy Duckworth can actually, if she wins, and I suspect that this race will go down to the wire. I think because a lot of money is being spent here. Republicans are trying to maintain control. They're trying to support Kirk, who's a moderate Republican, who's ran away from the Trump ticket. And so we'll see if that's going to help him here in this state. But let's say Tammy Duckworth wins. Hopefully she represents a little bit more of what she says.
I'll say this, and this is just my opinion. Had Mark Kirk not had a couple of hoof and mouth disease slips,
those comments, yes,
a lot of Black Democrats would have crossed over and voted for him.
Yeah.
So now we have, as far as this area, 2 first and second district representatives on the United States level running. Let me again say what the job is.
Our congressman?
Yes. Because people don't know the job. They are determined by the number of people in the state. So this is unlike the Senate. This is a fluctuating number.
Right.
Developing fair methods of taxation falls under their purview, as well as they have the sole power of impeachment for officers, judges, cabinet members, senators, and the president. They are supposed to introduce bills that deal with revenue or money, and they, as you stated earlier, elect the president if we have a non-majority in the Electoral College. So for the first district, we have Mr. August Duster running against Bobby Rush. I have no comment here. People know who they are. Mr. Rush is the Democrat and Mr. Duster is the Republican.
Right. Out of Orland Park, I believe, from Will County.
And out of the second district, we have Robin Kelly, who is the Democrat, and John F. Morrow as the Republican. I will say that I see Robin Kelly doing things. I do see her out here doing things. I haven't heard from Mr. Morrow at all. I haven't heard from Mr. Duster at all. I haven't heard from Mr. Rush at all.
So I'll just say one thing. I don't think you're going to hear anything from the Republican candidates coming into the Chicagoland part of the district. I'm pretty sure they're confident that they're not going to get votes. These are 2 safe seats. In fact, if you throw in the 7th congressional district, which is held by Congressman Danny Davis for a very long time as well, we have 3 safe Democratic seats that would propose and hopefully aspire to continue to represent the African American experience and perspective as a member of Congress. I know where you're going. I'm going to tell you frankly that we don't really have a choice here. We want to make sure that the House is continuing to creep up in numbers so that hopefully if we can't flip the Senate, maybe by 2020 we can hopefully gain control or regain control of the House. And so I think for Democrats, now speaking as a Democrat, there are some folks who are out there who are watching this show right now who may be a split ticket voter or maybe Republican or maybe a not a major party voter. But we have a better opportunity because of we are able, because we do know these candidates. We do know Congressman Keller. We do know Congressman Davis. We do know Congressman Rush. We know who they are. We don't know who the Republicans are. We've not seen them. They have not come to our communities to campaign. We have not seen their advertisements in our neighborhoods.
Nothing.
So,
and this is a 2-year term.
It's a 2-year term. So we can, if we don't get what we expect from our congressman, we always have a quick opportunity to reset. And hopefully, we can find good candidates to challenge them in primary so that at least if they do end up winning, hopefully we can raise a level of policy in terms of a platform that they can adopt as they go into the general election when it's their turn or when it's their time. So hopefully we can continue to find good candidates to run against, these longtime serving congressmen. I think we're in really good shape, especially in the 2nd district. Like you said, we see Robin everywhere. She does a lot of health advocacy. She's doing a lot more on small business and entrepreneurship advocacy. She's working with Blue 1647 a lot, and she had emailed Cambry to Congress to testify on some of the good things that he's doing in terms of tech entrepreneurship. She's working on a lot of anti-violence. That's her main staple, is gun control, and she's really, I think, a leader in the House on that. She's on the Foreign Relations Committee, and so I think we're pretty good with Robin Kelly where she's at, and hopefully she will want to serve 10 or more years. But for the other 2 seats, we're getting a little bit long in the tooth, and hopefully we can find some new leadership in those areas that will replace when the time is right and continue, with some great service to our district, to our communities.
I'm smiling so hard because I'm not typically as tactful as you, and so I'm working on this right now as I'm sitting here. I would like to say this. I like Danny Davis. I've met Danny Davis on many occasions. And like I said, Mr. Rush has been in the seat for a while also. One of the downfalls of definitely the Democratic Party to me at this point, and it did not used to be this way, is that we fail to groom for consistency in leadership, because Danny Davis and Bobby Rush are both older and have been in these seats for a long time. And I know Bobby Rush has had some real serious health challenges. And although he is, functioning, it was really iffy there for a moment. And God forbid if something happens to either one of them just due to their ages.
Right.
I am not convinced that there's someone waiting in the wings that can just pick up that banner where they put it down and keep it moving. I just don't think we have done a good job with training. Succession
planning.
Yes.
Yes. We do it in our retirement. We do it for our state. We should do it for our politics as well. But you bring up an interesting point. In the event that something, were to happen with, a unforeseen transition, those seats would immediately be subject to a special election. And so there would be more than likely a free-for-all in terms of interested parties who would want to, run for that seat. These are not seats that can be appointed by the governor. And so that's where that succession planning is impacted there due to the law. If, for example, if we had a black senator, when Obama was nominated as our Democratic president, he vacated the Senate seat because he was in transition to become the president. The governor at that time was able to appoint a replacement and ended up, appointing Roland Burrs. And so that is the only scenario in which we have an appointment made versus a special election where the electors get to choose. And so that's what happened when Robin Kelly came to office when Jesse Jackson had to vacate his seat. That's when Robin Kelly won that special election, and she has been, I think, reelected twice instead.
Yes.
And so that's, but like you said, who's on deck, right? And so, I think there are a lot of great people out there who probably will express an interest, who may have experience in different elected offices. And, I think there are some great grassroots people, and there are some other folks who have run before, who have tested the waters and kind of put their flag up and let the general public know and the electorate that they're interested in serving as well. And so I think, it's always a little bit destabilizing when we have that scenario that you just presented in terms of a special election, because then we all kind of are in flux, because the community deserves to have someone that we know is going to be there and, hopefully expect, a continuous term. So we're not hoping that any of them fall ill or retire unexpectedly. But in the event that happens, I think that's been a concern of all of ours in the community as we've continued to watch and wait to see who maybe they are going to groom or have been grooming, because we like to see a continuous transition of people that we can, expect to provide good service.
Right, because I definitely think it's important to have a little familiarity, because if not, it's a shot in the dark, and that we really don't want to have that on any political level. The other funky battle that is a state battle, and it's a funky battle, is for comptroller for the state of Illinois. And we again have 4 candidates. I've only heard about 2, but we have Tim Curtin out of the Green Party, Claire Bell out of the Libertarian Party, Susana Mendoza, who is running under the Democratic banner, And Leslie Munger, who's running as a Republican, and she is the incumbent.
Right.
She was, I think, put into
She
the
was
job
appointed, right,
when Judy Bar Topinka suddenly died.
Passed away after she got elected in the general. And
Because
the governor had appointment authority, and he appointed this lady, Leslie Munger.
Because I don't even think she was 3 months in the term.
Oh, she actually didn't even take the oath of office.
Okay.
She died after the general.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, she died between November and January, and then that put the whole thing into flux at that moment. And there was a lot of conversation as to who had the right to appoint. Would it be the legislature or would it be the governor? And so I think lawyers figured it out that it was the governor. He appointed Leslie Munger for the private sector.
Now, I have not heard anything, like I said, from Claire Bell or Tim Curtin as far as advertisement, flyers, banners, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen a personal slugfest between Susana Mendoza and Leslie Munger either. What I have seen, though, is a lot of advertisement from both of them. Let me tell people what the comptroller does. The comptroller pays the state's bills.
That's right.
Which is one of the biggest battles because we don't have a budget still.
Unbelievably.
Yes. Keeps the state's books, helps local governments with accounting if needed, and is actually the regulating entity over some of the private cemeteries in the state of Illinois. So that's kind of a big job. What Leslie Munger has been standing on is her efforts to not pay the members of the Illinois General Assembly because they won't pass a budget.
Right.
And Susana Mendoza currently has a job. She is a City of Chicago employee.
She's a Chicago city clerk.
Okay, so we have two people that have been in office. Again,
Susana Mendoza is a former state representative. So
she has a lot of background. So Munger, I'm not sure where she came from as far as outside of being appointed, but she's saying, I've done all I can to stop these people from wasting your money. And that's my claim to fame.
Yeah, so Leslie Munger actually got the endorsement for the Chicago Tribune as well as the Sun-Times. And so that for her and for Republicans is a big coup, right?
But a lot of people like Susana Mendoza.
Right. She's very popular in the Chicagoland area, and she's I think a rising star in the Democratic Party. The question is, can she beat Leslie Munger? And we know that Bruce Rauner is putting a lot of money into this race. A lot of money, people. A lot of money, like big money. And she herself has put in a lot of money, which has allowed the spending caps to be raised and lifted. And so now has been an influx of cash from super PACs into this comptroller's race. The Republicans are playing for keeps here.
Well, I will say this for Susana Mendoza. One of the issues when you're dealing with a statewide ticket election is when you're from the Chicago area, you're not necessarily, she may be the exception because of her prior experience, but you're not necessarily as well known. And unfortunately, because there's always, for some people, a Chicago versus the rest of Illinois viewpoint, you're not necessarily as well liked. And there are concerns for people in the Chicagoland area. If Susana Mendoza is elected, what does that do for her job spot?
Oh, at city clerk's position, you mean? Oh, yeah. So that again, right? It sets in motion a chain reaction, a domino effect, where if she does win, she'll have to vacate the city clerk spot. That will allow the mayor to appoint a new city clerk, much like what he did when Stephanie Neely retired and went to the private sector. He got to appoint, and that was Kurt Summers, who now is the city treasurer. So he will appoint the city clerk. Susana Mendoza, if she wins, will be the comptroller in waiting come January. Leslie Munger will go back to making millions probably in the private sector. Bruce Rauner will be upset. Madigan and the Democratic Party will be happy. They have someone they can trust that probably will write the checks to pay the bills and make sure that our legislators get their pay, which to me is the real reason why they want a change in this position in this office. And I think if you look at what she's done, and speaking of Leslie Munger here, I don't think the general population would have a problem with her position on not paying the state legislators.
No.
She's by law written the checks, but she's put them in the line of bills to be paid. And so they actually are waiting to be paid like everyone else. So they don't get paid every, twice a month, like whatever state folks get paid 1st and 15th. They're getting paid when it's their time to get paid in terms of when the bills are paid. And I think, without being partisan, that's a responsible way to approach the government backlog of expenses that we have that have contributed to this, overwhelming debt that we have, which is nearing $10 billion. And so I am glad to know that the governor has decided to, make sure, and the GA, the General Assembly, to make sure that essential services are being paid, right? There are some not-for-profits being paid. Human services, of course, are, first responders, our state police, and our prison system. Those essential things are being paid on time and regularly. But, let's not make too big a deal about this position, because it's simply, the office that writes the checks. What they both have agreed on, Mendoza as well as Munger, they both agreed that, and I want you to remember this, everybody, that just a while ago, the Democrats were proposing that the Treasurer's office and the Comptroller's office be merged, much like what they're proposing with the Recorder of Deeds office in Cook County with the clerk's office. They want those two offices to be merged.
Someone about that in Chicago.
Yes, that's it's another tricky legislative scenario that's being played in our politics today, is the merging of offices in the name of efficiency. And so they both agree on that. They both agree on that legislators should be paid. So like if they both agree on some of the main policy issues, most folks probably would realize if they're not being partisan, then what's the difference, right? And so I think that's a very tough hurdle for Susana Mendoza to overcome in her campaign. And so,
because you're right, their commercials to me sound remarkably
similar in terms of what their platforms are. Yeah. So that's much harder for someone to campaign against an incumbent if they both agree. So, just something to watch out for. But absolutely, the Republicans are going for broke on this race. They want to make sure they keep this seat. And Browner is going all in. He's got a $20 million PAC that's spending very heavily in her favor, as well as some other races they believe they can pick off downstate. It's a very interesting campaign cycle, and here in Chicago, Illinois is a safe state. It's going to be blue. Hillary will win Illinois. And so a lot of folks have wondered, does my vote even count? And we want to encourage everybody, Rhea, just like you've been saying,
you still need to vote, because even beyond the presidency, we have so many other
down ballot races.
Which one is and I had to put this one in here, the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County,
Dorothy Brown.
Diane Shapiro is the Republican candidate, and Dorothy Unbossed Brown is the Democratic Party candidate. Diane Shapiro used to be a coworker of mine at the probation office.
Okay.
And so I was so surprised when I saw her name. I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And I haven't seen any publicity or anything from Diane. I wish her the best. Mm-hmm. But Dorothy and bucking, the system bucked Dorothy first, according to how the script looked like it was played, and Dorothy bucked back.
Yeah, she really did.
So now you have a candidate that, even if she wins as a Democrat, is still kind of an outsider because of how things played during the primary season.
Right. And I think it's fair to say that Dorothy Brown, of all the candidates running in Illinois, I think it's fair to say that Dorothy Brown is the people's choice.
Oh yeah,
she actually,
that was ridiculous.
No, what happened to her was unprecedented, or maybe it happened back in Boss Daly, or Bill Thompson way back. But I think she showed, and the people showed her, the voters actually showed her that she is the people's choice. And I if you really think back and analyze this, I don't think anybody should be surprised at how her primary turned out.
Well, you know what?
She ran away with it.
It was so ridiculous to me, because just to see, like I said, how it had not in recent history been done like that, just to be booted out by the party and you're the incumbent.
Right.
But
where the Democratic Party unendorses you.
Right, unendorses you. Just wow. But my alderman was slated to run against her, Michelle Harris. And the people in the 8th Ward had two mindsets. Number
Hi,
one,
Alderman Harris.
they felt, well, if we vote for her to get in there, she'll get out of here. So maybe we'll vote for her. And the others were just like, I just can't. So it got to be very tricky. Plus, people respected Dorothy Brown for being a fighter.
Yeah,
for not lying down on that.
You know, when people in our community, you know, I'm trying to be politically correct here. I know you're laughing at the people in our community, but when our people get down, we get around them.
Yes.
When our folks go down, hey, when they go low, we go high, right?
Right.
We're stronger together.
Right. They were like, oh my goodness, they did.
We've got a corral around Dorothy, and the community did that.
They really felt like they were like, they're doing something to her.
They're doing something to our girl. We're not gonna let her go out like that. And everybody from the entire county. Yep. She had over, I think, 450,000 votes. She won that thing running away. Which is interesting because I, you know, with respect to Michelle Harris running, I think really the play was for Jacob Meister to get in there somehow. And I think all three candidates had something to bring to the table. Obviously, the incumbent was there doing the job in the office for, you know, a couple of terms, obviously a long time. You know, she's the incumbent. She has the record of performance. Everybody has something to bring to the table. Obviously, Alderman Harris brings a lot of legislative experience and, you know, a lot of know-how, a lot of contacts. You know, she knows the people, obviously, and Jacob Meister, being a lawyer who works in that court often, you know, bringing cases, understands, you know, the challenges that lawyers face in terms of, you know, what they have to do to perform for their clients, you know, in the court system. You know, they all brought something to the table that was tangible. But again, our community showed up, showed out. And, you know, again, we rally around our people when our people are down.
You're not going to take that from Dorothy. That's what we just said. You're not going to do that.
And that's what we're going to have to do also, if we care, to, you know, again, rally behind what's going on at the county level with the Recorder of Deeds office, you know, so we've got to do that.
They did. They said, they're trying to take Karen's job, so Karen Yarbrough.
Let's stay woke, y'all. We have to stay. We can't sleep on everything.
On that one. And the clerk's job is a 4-year term. But yet when they tried to sneak and consolidate Karen Yarbrough's job, as it's looked at, which is the Recorder of Deeds. I'm sorry, the Recorder of Deeds.
The Recorder of Deeds, right.
They were like, no, you're trying to take her.
And they actually went after the clerk of the circuit court's office as well. They tried to make that an appointed position versus an elected position, and that didn't fold also.
They're trying to get Dorothy.
You know, a lot of things you can say about that, you know, in terms of where the motivation lies in regards to these offices or in regards to these office holders. And so,
a lot of times it is about who has a job, not about the job itself.
But let's pivot real quick to black turnout. Let's congratulate the unions in Philadelphia who settled their case so that there won't be any stoppages of bus service or train service, or the public transportation system will be running and fully operational tomorrow, so that voters can go. Because in Pennsylvania, they can only vote on election day. They don't have early voting in Pennsylvania. They don't have, you know, other ways to, you know, record people's interest except for on election day. And so we're very happy that that strike was resolved. The union came to terms, and so the people are going to be back to work, and service will be provided for the millions of folks who are going to vote. And we know that black voter turnout in Philadelphia specifically is going to be hopefully high. And hopefully we're going to, well, yes, but in this race, you know, there's been a lot of talk about African-American enthusiasm being low. And so we hope that, you know, is not the case tomorrow in Pennsylvania. It's a battleground state.
Yes, it is. We have also the interesting situation with the Cook County State's Attorney.
Last one. Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah, one more after this.
Okay.
I have to throw something in there. It's a 4-year term. Now, after all of the Anita Alvarez just frenzy, Kim Foxx is the Democratic Party nominee. We have Christopher Fancook, who is the Republican nominee. Now, he was a state's attorney, if I recall correctly, at the Skokie Courthouse for years, and then went into private practice. I have a placard of Mr. Fancook's, and that's only because one of my coworkers worked with him in Skokie many years ago. I spoke with him on the phone and attempted to get him to come on the show, and he just never really came. And I don't know if that's because he saw my tape with Kim Foxx. I don't know what happened. But If he beats Kim Fox, I'm going to look for the pigs flying.
Are you moving to Australia?
Something big. Wait, I can't say the $66 collard greens because those are actually out there now at Neiman Marcus. They claim that they sold out, but that's a whole different conversation.
I think if there ever was a layup in this election cycle, this would be the one. This is, this is the layup. Yeah, this is going to be a layup. I think,
she and Dorothy Brown, I think, are just walking the door.
The way that Kim's primary turned out with, I believe, over 65% of the vote, she really slammed in her primary. I think boded very well for her coming into the general, which is tomorrow. So I think, this is the race that Black voters, as well as a lot of different voters, progressive around the entire county of Cook, are excited about the most and can't wait to vote for. And probably, again, early voter turnout in the Illinois races has been, I think, measurably strong, and I'm pretty sure that Kim already has a tremendous lead in the voter results. So this is a layup. I think Kim is the right candidate for the time today to go into this, very critical office at this time in our life, in our community, with the issues that we face. I think we need someone who not only optically represents the community that has suffered the most, from law enforcement and from an abuse of power in that office, but I think her ability to connect,
on a very human level.
On a very human level. Thank you. That's a appropriate word. I think I was probably looking for something else, but that's actually good. Because she can relate to those younger folks that are most affected by the things that we see the most, right? The challenges that we face with dealing with law enforcement. So Kim is, I think, the right person for this generation, and we can only hope for the best, because I think the ceiling is very high for Kim Fox. Great family person, great, future ahead of her, good experience already, being, in the president's office at a very critical, position, and being a former ASA and a supervisor. So I think all the building blocks are there, and hopefully, we can support her as a community and, challenge her when we need to. Right, challenge her when we need to, but obviously, I think that this is the right position for her at this time.
You said something I want to chime on a little bit, because I think this is a mistake that we made with Barack Obama. We did not, because we felt like he was being so beaten on by everyone else, challenge him when we needed to, and we didn't speak up for what we actually wanted as a population, and then we got angry with him when he didn't deliver it. And I want us to be very clear, just because a candidate looks like us does not mean that we can't say to that candidate, I need you to do a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that, whatever the case is, as long as it's decently done and in order, you should be able to say that. You should be able to have that conversation and hopefully see some change.
I agree, Rhea. I completely agree. And I think, and I'll pull back the curtain a little bit here and be honest with, our viewers. I think it's fair to say that the Obama administration era, these last 7.5 years, has, in some respects, not entirely, in some respects, created a number of frustrated Democrats. And we spoke about this earlier, from a standpoint of an African-American perspective. What has he done for the Black community, kind of thing. And so I think it's fair to say that there have been frustrated Democrats. And I think that frustration lies in what you just said, our unwillingness, right, to challenge our leaders, to do more, say more, advocate more, push more, and not to do more of that, but also include this, right? And so I think, when you go to a restaurant, you want to see a very full menu. You don't want to just see 3 things on the menu, because that's probably a restaurant you don't want to revisit because they don't have enough options. And so, I think what again, I said it, you reiterated and reinforced it, is challenge our leadership to do more, to do what we hope is better. Because again, I think in some cases, perception does match reality. And when Black voters and black folks across this country have said we haven't gotten enough, because they're looking outside the window and they're seeing the realities in their communities and they're seeing what they don't have. It's easy to point out the negative and not fully understand the challenges that he faced as president. But you're right. We want to protect him, and therefore we don't want to be an extra level of tension or pressure being applied to him to serve. But we've got to be able to push through that wall and challenge our leaders, and that's all of our leaders: state's attorney, congressmen, senators, even the clerk of the circuit court, mayor, whomever. City clerk, whomever.
Because we cut up our noses, right, in this case, to spite our own faces without that being the intention.
Right. And then that becomes our reality.
I have one more vacancy I have to speak on, and this is something that people don't understand is very important. It's the judges, the Cook County judges. And for the first sub-circuit, for the vacancy of Hopkins, we initially only had one person, which was Rhonda Crawford. And I'm still not clear, after reading numerous stories, what exactly happened in Markham's courthouse. But to make a long and hazy story as short and as clear as I can, it appears that prior to this election, of course, she was afforded the opportunity to sit on the bench and listen to a couple of cases. I do not know if she ruled on these cases. I do not know the details of it. But the judge that allowed her to do that is on administrative leave or sitting downtown at the administrative office.
Yeah.
And Rhonda Crawford is going through some maneuvers legally.
Right. Actually, I think there was a court ruling or an administrative ruling with the governing body that regulates attorneys. And so she got her license, I think, suspended. And so technically that will put her in a situation where she can't actually serve. And so if you can't actually serve, then I think that may, perception-wise disqualify her from being a judge. And so this is a very interesting race.
There's a write-in.
There's a write-in candidate. You can give a name.
Ahmad.
Right. Very interesting lady.
And she's actually, if I recall correctly, I think she's run before. She's already a judge.
Right. She's a sitting judge. She's trying to move up to this level. And she ran in the primary, and unfortunately she did not come out on top. And so Rhonda Crawford was the one that, won the primary. And then all these things came to light, much like a WikiLeaks. And, I had a chance to meet Judge Ahmed during the primary process. And, although I don't know her personally like I'd like to, I will tell you one thing, viewers, that she has been out there. She has been out there campaigning. She has been out there everywhere in her sub-circuit. And she has been moving around and getting to know folks. And I think that, she did it as a result of her campaign, but especially now that she's the write-in candidate, she has continued her campaign. She's been out there, Rhea. I just saw her recently at a Park Manor Neighborhood Association meeting out in the Chatham area and in the Park Manor area. Let me give a shout out to Park Manor.
Yes.
And so she's out there moving. She's out there hustling. And, we have a clear choice, I think, in this particular judge race. And we should probably write her in. And I, encourage you all to do that.
Because that was just shocking.
It was shocking. And I'll say one thing as we wrap up. My dad used to take us to the mall and put us on his lap while he would drive the car.
So did mine.
So it didn't make us licensed drivers.
No.
Did it?
And it actually made us a little unsafe, but
That's right.
With that, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Patrick Brutus. I have really enjoyed having this conversation with you, because it is important that for those people that believe in the vote, that you do not neglect it because of the negativity of the campaigns. We have a lot riding on this.
Right. You still have a choice to make. Go out and vote tomorrow. If you haven't voted already, tomorrow's election day. A lot of folks fought for your right to do that. Go out there, exercise your right. There's 4 candidates running. Choose one that best fits your interests, but please vote. Don't sit at home. This is too important of a campaign to sit on your hands. Go pull the button for somebody.
That's right. And with that, that's the Straight No Chaser Show special segment this evening of our pre-election show. And we'll see how things turn out tomorrow evening. So everybody, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris signing off. Peace and blessings in the name of Jesus. Be safe.
It's straight talk with no chaser. He gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.